So a lot of people are wondering or come to me and they ask me, someone has just passed away and they're wondering what they could do to help that other person. How could they be of service to them? And I guess the first thing that I would like to say is it doesn't have to be anything big. It could be really small. And besides the cards and the letters, and those are beautiful gestures. My mail courier, I got to know her by name, by the way. Thank you, Patty. She would deliver the mail every day like this until one day she asked, are you okay? Is everything all right? Because she witnessed, no mails and only bills coming into all of a sudden, every day a stack. And I explained to her that my daughter had died. Well, the next day I opened up the mail and there was a card from my carrier. Now that's a pretty small gesture, but let me tell you, that was huge. The woman who was carrying my mail just gave me a card or that consideration and just said that she was thinking of me. And I just think that's huge. So I'm getting a buzz telling you that. I did see her on the street years later and pulled her over and told her, you don't probably realize what that meant to me. It was huge. And she cried when I told her. So I had the opportunity to thank her years later. So the day that my daughter died, a couple days later, the funeral had to take place. And I love order. My house is, people come in, they're like, oh, did you know I was coming? No, it's always in order. So the family had been in my house. People were dropping off meatloafs and cards and flowers, and so for me, they were all beautiful gestures, but the house felt a little overwhelming and small. So I was kind of freaking out by that. And I also knew that I was going to go to this funeral and I was just feeling overwhelmed. So my friend at the time asked me, what can I do? And I said, crying, go down 2 houses and ask Mary Lawyer to come down and tell her that I need her to get my house back to the way I know she knows I like it. And I'm going into that shower and I'm coming out and I'm going to face that funeral, but for right now, my house is my biggest problem. So my friend Gordon went down 2 doors, knocked on the door, told Mary exactly what I needed, and the last thing that I remember before I got into the shower was seeing her. I always cry when I tell the story. I saw her standing there. Now, she was going to the funeral too, okay? So she put aside her hair for a moment, and she had rubber gloves on with her own mop bucket and cleaning supplies. So she didn't have to ask me where mine was. And I just remember that there is nothing I needed more in that moment than just some help to put some order back in my life. And my God, here I am 8 years later, and I remember that like it was yesterday. And not because it makes me sad, but because it just showed such compassion and such, she was going to get dirty for me, and she would do anything for me, and she still continues to be that person. So my point, don't think that it has to be this huge thing, that is going to make such a big difference, because it could be as small as just pulling up a mop, putting an extra card in the mail from someone that you don't even know knows you. My mail courier. We played, it's funny when people ask me what I missed the most. We talked earlier on the video about missing her energy. And I did the video, What's Alive Inside, when I did my whole presentation to what was alive inside. It was the fact that I had missed out on playing. And, I just think to have children, sometimes you have to be a child yourself. And so I kind of felt like I got robbed from my youth all over again when she left, because there was no one to do Dollhouse with and put the groovy girls on. And, one of my last memories of her, we had, it's kind of an interesting story how things work out, it was Martin Luther King Day. So that was that Monday. Thank God for banking, because every Monday is a holiday. And so he'd had it off. And the day before, the lawyers, as I referenced earlier, Mary and Steve Lawyer and their 2 children, Casey and Carly, were her, best neighborhood friends. And they had promised her, she was the younger one, they had promised her that on Martin Luther King Day, they were going to play with her. And that, So evidently, Isla got up and ran down, knocked on the door, and I think they didn't answer the door on purpose, or for whatever reason, they were busy cleaning, and they kind of knew it was Isla, but they had to do their chores first, so I don't think they answered the door. And Isla came running back in the house and said, they didn't answer the door. And I said, oh, well, do you want to play with me? And so we got on the floor and we played Groovy Girls. And it was really at a point where I recognized I was in trouble too with my daughter, because Groovy Girls, there were Groovy Girls. She had, 15 characters, and they were all girls, and we were playing, and she decided to set up a campus, a college campus. And I had one other doll in there that was a boy. And she turned to me, and of course that boy was really active, so he was getting moved from scene to scene. And she looked at me and she says, Mommy, I think we're going to need more boys for all these Groovy Girls. And I remember sitting there playing on the floor with her going, oh, there it is, there's that sign of relationships and stuff that I was heading to. So, well, back to my story this day, this beautiful day. I think we took a nap together that day. Just everything perfect for a mother's last day with her child. Wouldn't change a thing. In fact, the night before, she had asked if that night, thank you, she asked if she could sleep with me. It had been over a year since, she'd been sick and climbed into bed with me. But that particular night, she said, can I sleep with you? And I was like, hell yeah, come on up. So I just had all those last experiences, and I'm just so thankful. But what was interesting is, the lawyers down the street, the father came down, and of course, Steve and Mary, it was just as hard for them as it was for me, must say that. And I don't know, it's always about the lawyers. It's how significant this time was. But Steve admitted to me, he said, I gotta tell you, my girls are down there and they're feeling pretty bad because evidently they remembered Isla coming to the door. And they're feeling really bad that they didn't open it. And that was like their last chance to play with her. So I was like, well, do you mind if I talk to them? He was like, wow, anything you could say would be great. So I went down the street and I asked to see both the girls, and just so I could spend one-on-one time with them. And I sat in front of them, and I'll never forget it. I said this, I just have to stop crying to tell you, so hold on. I took a deep breath and I said, oh, girls, I just want you to know one thing. I'm so glad that you didn't answer the door that day. I understand Isla knocked at the door and you were busy doing something and you didn't answer because you thought you'd get to her later. I just want you to know thank you, because she came home and we played. And I just so appreciate that time together with her, and I'm so glad that you were too busy so I could be with her, and it worked out perfect. And I remember telling them that, and I remember witnessing the comfort that brought them, which was the total truth, by the way. It is the truth. It is just, it's those last moments and those last minutes that you have that become completely infused. And I've always said that when I'm working with people in their grief. I said, why is it that people's lives, you go through just normal experiences, I had lunch with him last week, or I just saw him 2 weeks ago and he left me in voicemail, or whatever. At the moment it just seems so insignificant, and then you get the call, they're gone, and all of a sudden it's like, this is what I think in my mind's eye, I think it's like this. I think it's like, whew. Every moment that you've had with that human being, that soul that encounters those experiences, those moments, those words, those shared, those emotions, all just get like burned in and etched inside your soul as memories, and they become so much more significant, don't they? Like so much more like infused. I guess that would be the only word I could use, and how important that is. So then you show up, and that's when people share all those stories, which is why I think the process of funerals and family and getting together and really talking about that, the 3 days it takes to bury somebody, there's a reason for that. You need those 3 days to just get through the stories. And I learned more about my daughter. I found more out about her in her leaving than I probably ever would have been privy to if life had just moved on. So, I used to call it the pieces of the puzzle. It's like every kid who showed up, or every mother who knew her, or every friend who said that infusion took place, they would come to me with just a little piece of the puzzle, and I'd go, okay, I'll take that, and I'd put it down, and I started to form her life. So, I love how significant people's lives are, and everyone and everything is important, right? So I just think that's an important message. Whew. Thank you for that ride. How's my videographer doing, you're wondering? We've taken more breaks because of tears than I'm gonna have to find a videographer who doesn't cry every time I try to shoot a scene. You okay? You want a tissue?